Hello, and welcome to a new episode of We Built It Because We Had to. Today, I'm joined by Michael Parrella, who is the CEO of a company called Energy AI. Check the spelling in the comments below this posting, as it's not spelled energy; it's a unique spelling. So today, I am pleased to bring on Michael for two reasons. Number one, his current company is very timely. It works with energy markets. And as we know contextually, these are a bit awry worldwide at the moment. Number two is Michael has a great turnaround story where they hit a dead end with a company and pivoted. And these are lessons that we can all learn from in the startup world. With that, Michael, welcome.
Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. So, how about just a quick career arc? What led you to this moment? And I understand you joined a company called SoftSmiths, and from SoftSmiths is where ennrgy.com was born. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. So just a brief background, 2 minutes. What brought you to this moment with this company?
Um, how far back do you want me to go? I was born and raised with my dad being an entrepreneur. So I've had that spirit for a long time, always in the aspect of being inventive and being innovative and then trying to drive a company forward with a particular interest on culture, right? Really understanding how people work. I think people are a system. And so we have to figure out how to help people work and keep them happy and motivated and so forth. So anyway, so I was in the energy industry for a long time, about 9 years as a CEO of a company, and then I left to go be chief strategy officer for with a friend of mine to help him establish his entrepreneurial business in a different industry altogether. And then I got the opportunity to come back into the energy under SoftSmiths. Uh, so came back, a small company that was punching above its weight class with some very large customers.
Hmm.
And then so I did came back in late 2024. And then in early 2025, we pretty much learned that we were going to lose our largest customer by virtue of uh, a competitor that came in that had an offering that was less expensive and more modern functionality. Not quite bleeding edge, but better than what we had. So had a
Right.
little
So,
bit of weight.
is it fair to say, Michael, that that was an existential moment for the company? Another live or die was facing the immediate
Yeah.
future?
Yes, absolutely. It was one of those writing on the wall moments. I mean, in fairness, I was having many of those moments in sequence, right? And that was just the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back.
Now, what did you do with the company to pivot or adjust to give it a new market opportunity from this near death experience?
So, had some folks internally that were built from the same cloth, looking at this and saying, "Hey, let's stop doing the same thing and beating our heads against the wall. Let's think about this differently." And really, it came up to because we had been in energy analytics or processing data in and around how energy works for a long time, it became obvious that um, one of the things that people need is they need the right information in their fingertips faster, with less digging around. Right. Um, so it was just a matter of, having that high level use case, that high level understanding of what the needs are, and then figuring out how do we go about solving that in a creative way.
Right. Understood. So for listeners here, tell us, briefly about the solution that energy.com provides. And for viewers, it's ennrgy.com.
Sure. I mean, so we still have our bedrock products, and in full transparency, we in December we reacquired the components of my old company as well. So we folded it in and we've strengthened the company beyond that existential moment. So we
Hmm.
do have some really great products that are more traditionally based, right? Which,
Hmm.
basically it's everything around deliver what it takes to deliver soft energy to uh, an end user in a competitive market. So forecasting how much energy folks are going to use, buying the energy at wholesale so that it can be converted to retail, managing the positions, determining how much it actually cost when it actually went to the market, and then helping price energy as well for different things in both electricity and natural gas. So that's the base level of what we do. But then when it comes down to is in all of the individual use cases that it comes, whether it's pricing, selling,
Hmm.
forecasting, each one of those components, there are personnel in an energy organization that have that as their bread and butter, right? And typically, they have a high level of expertise, but they usually, in order to do their jobs, have to do a lot of massaging of information with spreadsheets and so forth and so on, to and manual menial labor, if you will, in some cases, to get to the ultimate work product. And so
Right.
what we do is we shorten that, right? So if you imagine the traditional approach is sort of an inverted pyramid where you've got a lot of data up top and you dig and you dig and you dig to get to that the tip, which is upside down. What we try to do is invert it and put the tip at the top and say,
Mm.
here's the information that, or the even the decision that you really need, and then here's the information that supports or uh, bolsters that opinion. Okay, but if you
Right.
trust it, you can get right to it. Like here it is, right?
I guess
Literally,
what
like your
AI
your,
is
your newspaper on your doorstep. So
I guess that's what AI is really good at doing is amalgamating massive amount of information and summarizing or even providing recommendations based on that summary.
right, and so yeah, absolutely, and detecting patterns,
Hmm.
right, and understanding what hey, this looks a lot like that, and this is what you did last time, and this is how it worked, and this is how it didn't work, and right, so helping shape those decisions, but always with the under the auspices of keeping humans in the
Okay, interesting. Given your background in energy markets, I actually have a couple of questions that serve me. I needed to talk to someone learned in the verticals. Um, Number one, I've been reading that the paper trades for oil these days, say in the mid 90s, are not matching the physical trades. I read in some cases some Eastern Asian countries have paid up to $280 a barrel. Do you see any of that? I know it might not be directly related to energy to your company, but are you seeing a big gap between paper and physical?
where what we see is and this is more about like the settlements process, and when we're dealing mostly with electricity and natural gas, not oil, but
Yeah, right.
there is a parallel, right, where you constantly need to understand what you're being charged for, right?
Hmm.
And so one of the things that has happened is that they make estimates based that we're gonna introduce a new charge, and we're gonna estimate that this new charge and this new way of doing things is going to result in this kind of a charge, right? And then reality hits, and it doesn't even approximate it whatsoever, right? So costs wind up being a lot higher in some instances than folks anticipated, and they have a hard time reconciling where those costs came from. So it perhaps not directly paper, but you really have to look into what you're being charged and what are those subcomponents that you're being charged, because it's very difficult to match it up,
Right,
right? And
right,
and then like I talked about pricing, when you're setting a retail price, you're making a retail price based upon an assumptive cost structure that may or may not play out. And when it doesn't play out, you need to understand why so you don't make the same mistake.
right, right. Interesting. Now, just sticking with electricity, I have a similar question. Everybody's been reading lately about the rise in electricity. I heard something like 18% over the last year in average markets. Um, with these AI data centers that are coming online and have such a huge demand, um, I also read the US government has killed 25 to 30 gigawatts of new power projects at the same time. So there seems to be a gap in supply and demand that's only getting worse. Microsoft or Meta has a Stargate project. It looks like it needs, 10 nukes, and we've only built one in 30 years in this country. Uh, what are you seeing here in the future of electrical energy?
It depends on whether it's a good day or a bad day as to whether or not you look at this as a really, really big problem, which it is, or you look at it as a tremendous opportunity, which it is. Okay.
I
There
see.
is going to be a lot of chaos, right? And in the United States, we have several different grids. Like people say, oh, the grid, right?
Mhm.
Well, Texas has a grid, California has a grid, New York has a grid. Then there's PJM, which is another grid. There's a bunch of different,
Okay.
independent service operators and grids, if you will, and they're interconnected, but it's still they're independent grids. And when you've got that kind of a play, there's regulatory differences, right? There are market level pricing differences in how they operate. In some places, there's an incumbent utility, and in some places, there's nothing but retail supply, and so forth. So, my point there is that there is a lot of variability of what goes on and the decisions that get made. So there's uh, that challenge and that problem is being handled in different ways. So some jurisdictions have said, hey, if you're going to put a big data center in, you need to put in the corresponding supply, right? So you have to build a power plant to go along with your data center, right? You don't just get to plug it into the grid, right?
Right.
I have a blog post that I wrote on our site. It's about the 5 gigawatt toaster that kind of lays it out in layman's terms, like what the problem is, right? You have a 5 gigawatt toaster and you have a 2 gigawatt plug or whatever. Like, what do you do to solve that problem? So that challenge is there, and one of the major problems with the AI data centers, differently than like the old Bitcoin data center challenge, right? Is that in Bitcoin land, you can say, hey, um, the grid's actually going to pay me not to consume electricity, right? And you can make the decision: I'm going to make more money out of mining Bitcoin, or am I going to make more money by not consuming electricity?
Right.
In AI, right? Like if you and I want that goofy picture, right? That's AI driven, right? Or we have a research report that's AI driven, or we have software to code that's being written by AI. When you hit that enter button, you expect your results. So you can't curtail the demand for
Right.
AI. It's on and it just gets more and more and more. So that poses a real capacity challenge across all of the markets.
Yeah.
and, and there's a number of different ways we have to attack it every way we can. You have to Legoland that supply together to get it done.
Now, given the speed of AI innovation and the demand for new data centers, even though they're being told to build their own power plants, is that even physically possible? With the laws of physics, to build something at speed, whether it's nuke or any other energy source. I mean, is it even physically possible? Are we going to look at large energy gaps continuing for the next 10 years?
Probably not. There are probably going to be places where there are large energy gaps, right? And then there are going to be some projects that get killed, right? And then sometimes we're probably going to have to wait for our goofy photo, right? Like there's a number of different ways that it's going to need to be approached. By the same token, I believe that AI in some respects will help solve some of its own problems, right? So in other words, what are the other innovative ways that we can do things? Can you create chips that use less energy and so forth and so on? So you have to approach it multi-pronged. There's no one silver bullet, so to speak.
I see.
Uh, by the same token, being an ostrich doesn't work either. Okay. Like folks are ignoring certain parts of what the solutions are,
Hmm.
for political reasons, and that's going to be really problematic, right? Like we got to throw everything we can at making sure that, by virtue of the fact that we want things faster with AI, that it doesn't completely crush our energy infrastructure.
That's right. Well, those are some great thoughts. I really thank you, Michael, for joining us here on We Built It Because We Had to. People should check out ennrgy.com, spelling was previously shared. And Michael, thanks for sharing your backstories and humbling moments so that we all may learn from them.
Absolutely. And if I was just going to give a parting shot for folks, is that sometimes those existential moments create your best moments, right? When you have that moment where you put your head on the pillow and you're not going to sleep and your mind is racing, let your mind race, because sometimes that's where the best ideas come.
Wise words. Thank you, Michael.
Cheers. Thanks very much.